Welcome, folks, back to the Remedy Project, David Simpson and the criminal justice realm. I'm back. Guess who is back? Look, listen. Yes, I get it. I know you're tired. I know you don't want to hear anymore. But again, this stuff is important. I'm here with important stuff. Every piece of information I'm giving you is important and vital for you to do good and or great by folks who are incarcerated. And so I'm going to cover a few things that extremely important that goes hand in hand with using the administrative remedy process and or navigating the system, the prison system on behalf of folks who are incarcerated. These are kind of like some key legal concepts that you have to understand in order to do good by folks. This video, for your sake, is not gonna be long. I know you're gonna, I gotta knock this guy out. No, you don't have to. This one is gonna be short. It's not going to be long. I got you. All right. I got your back right here. This is not long. Understanding key legal concepts. I know this stuff looks good. I can't take credit for putting it together. Everything around me, students do. Right? Students are the ones who are behind me doing all this great work. And so they created this document for me to use in this training process. So let's go ahead and use it. All right, you're ashamed not to. Understanding key legal concepts while using this stuff. Okay, first and foremost, we're going to switch right away to substantive versus procedural law. Now, I know there's some things here that we prepared for you to read on this issue. I can breeze through them with you, but you don't necessarily have to hear my voice talking about all this stuff, but it's here for you to read. But what I want to do is give you a couple examples of what that is so that you get it, right? And so there's examples here, but I want to give you some others also so that you get it, right? So substantive law, enacted laws that outline everyone's entitlements and or responsibilities. These laws can be constitutional, statutory, or regulatory. Examples: constitutional protections from cruel and unusual punishment, law requiring Bureau of Prisons to provide a safe environment. Right? Yeah. All right. What does all that really mean? Right? What does that really all mean? And all that was said there, that we said to you there, is in a prison context. It's in a context of what we do. It's relevant to what we do, right? But what does that really mean? What is really substantive law? Well, substantive law, to break it down even more simpler, substantive law is rules, regulations, laws that are provided for you to follow, but in a, let's say, in a general sense, I'm trying to break this down really small because legal folks know and understand this stuff, and they're trained to understand this complex language, like substantive law, procedural law. Procedural is more kind of self-explanatory, but really not. But substantive, what is that? Okay, simply put, don't lie. If there's a law that says don't lie to officials or don't run the red light. When you see the stop sign, when you're approaching the stop sign, you should stop, make sure nothing is coming, and then cross. Substantive law. Hate speech. Substantive law. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not murder. Substantive law. These kind of laws that usually govern our daily lifestyle, right? And that's all they are, right? And we have to abide by them and follow them. And if you break substantive law, if you're dealing with the government and or the courts and or the legal system, when you violate substantive law, you then have to go through a set of procedures that are written down for individuals who break these laws to go through. So, procedural law is the procedures by which you go through after or during dealing with the law and or the courts because of a violation that you might have done or because of something that you're being charged with. So as simple as uh, the court telling you that you should be there on time at 10 o'clock for your court appointment for a particular ticket. That requirement that you get there for that time becomes a procedural law. And if you don't get there at that time that they give, and they call your name at that time and you're not there, you can be penalized for not being there at that time. Usually procedural laws, however, are more are included in laws, um, and they have time limits set out, right? So, for instance, you have a right to a speedy trial. If you are charged with a crime and indicted on a crime, procedural law then kicks in that says you have the right to a speedy trial. And so they have to do that, right? Another procedural law, actually, before you even go there, if an officer thinks, like, say, for instance, pulls you over um, for driving under the influence, he suspects that you are driving while intoxicated, and he pulls you over. He believes or suspects you for violating the substantive law not to drive while intoxicated, right? And then what he will do is then start to follow a set of procedures, is what he will put you through, um, uh, in by which he can then, charge you and turn you over for violating that law. So, for instance, when he then tells you come out of the car and follow these instructions, walk this line, stand on one foot, da da da, all of this is a set of procedures that that officer has to follow, or let's say he should follow, because we know sometimes they don't always. But let's say he determines that yes, you are intoxicated, driving while intoxicated, you have violated a substantive law. He can then read you your rights. In reading you your rights is a procedural law, right? When he starts going, at this point in time, you have the right to remain silent. Okay? That is procedure. He's following procedural law. That if he does not follow that procedural law, you can beat and or win your case because the officer violated procedural law. Um, and so everyone involved has to know and abide by procedural law. All folks, whether you are the person suspected of breaking the law, or the officers or of the court or the law that are putting you through the process. Everyone has to obey procedural laws. All right. And so he reads your rights and they then take you to court. You have to have an arraignment within 24 hours. That is a procedural law. And then you have the right to a speedy trial. They ask you whether you're going to plead guilty or innocent at your arraignment. All of those are procedural laws, things that you have to go through. It's a process, right? That you go through a process of procedures, and that is procedural law. So again, substantive and procedural, I hope those basic explanations cover that in general terms. Why it is all of this is important, substantive and procedural law, to what we do at the Remedy Project. That is because the administrative remedy program is a process of procedural law. It's heavily inundated with procedural law requirements for individuals, both incarcerated and the staff members, by which everyone has to follow these steps, these written laws, this process in order to get to an outcome. So it is very, very important to understand the difference and to understand that following the law of procedure is just as important as not violating the substantive law, right? So in the prison context, a staff member that neglects someone, their medical attention, which we know happens a whole lot, neglects to give them medical treatment, they violated the substantive right of that individual to uh, be treated in a respectful manner, to be provided with health care, um, to be taken seriously about their health, and their constitutional rights to health, right? That's one of the very few that they still have. When a staff member does that, they violate that right. And so what happens next is the incarcerated person can then start bringing that issue up through the procedural law called the administrative remedy process by starting to follow the steps of that, which is informal resolution, BP9, BP10, BP11. Following that process through, now that's procedural law. And the incarcerated person is using this procedural law to get relief from the substantive violation of his individual rights. Let's give you that from the aspect of the staff. How do you see it from the aspect of the incarcerated person? Well, incarcerated people can be charged for violating prison policy and or um, committing prohibited acts, as you would have seen in the disciplinary program statement. You see in there, it covers a lot of um, prohibited acts that folks who are incarcerated are not supposed to commit. And all of those prohibited acts listed that folks are not supposed to commit are substantive laws, right? Substantive requirements. They're not supposed to violate these rules and the regulations laid out by the prison system for them. And if they violate those rules and regulations laid out by the system for them, the disciplinary program, which is procedural law, is then enacted when the staff member decides to write the person, the individual, a ticket for violating the substantive law. And when that staff issues that first incident report, now you have the process, the procedural law process for the violation of that substantive law kicks in and takes over. And so it then becomes a series of steps that needs to be done, right? So the officer has to write the um, incident report within 24 hours. That's procedural law. The investigating officer has to investigate within the same 24 hours. Procedural law. The investigating officer has to turn over the incident report to the incarcerated person within the same 24 hours. Procedural law. The UDC and or unit team has to see the person or the individual within 5 days. Procedural law, and so on and so forth, right? And if staff breaks that, they're violating the person's due process rights, their rights to having a fair and a substantial process, uh, you know, being held for them to give them the best ability to deal or challenge what is being presented against them, right? So substantive and procedural law, I hope that I did a good job of breaking that down as simple as I can so that anyone could understand the differences between substantive and procedural law and then how it applies to us at the Remedy Project and or anyone who is hoping to assist folks who are incarcerated with doing remedies. Okay, so I'm going to move on quickly here because I promise not to stay long. You know, I know you're tired of my voice. I'm tired of it too. All right, here's what we got: grounds versus standing. Right, grounds versus standing. And what do we have here? What do students have here for you? Say reason why a person has a legal right to redress. Okay. Um, it says standing, a person's legal right given through an enacted statute or constitutional provision to seek redress through a judicial and an administrative process. All right. Okay. Light fixture falling in a cell is grounds for redress, and a person would have standing if in this case if only they suffered an injury direct. Okay, all right. So, hey, where did they get that from? They got that from me. All right. So I'll break that down for you. I'll give you that understanding because that's important, right? In the prison system, things happen. A lot of things happen, sometimes bad, and incarcerated folks would feel like a lot of times that that bad thing that happened um, affected them negatively, and that they are entitled to redress or compensation for that thing that happened. And the truth is, a lot of times that is just not so. And this says grounds versus standing. This should be grounds and or standing, not grounds versus standing. It should be grounds and or standing. All right? I'm sorry about that. An individual has grounds to raise a claim against something that happened to them if it happened to them, not if it happened to someone else. A lot of people don't understand that if you witness an act, not just because you witness an act and a bad act or something bad that happened to someone else, that doesn't mean that you have the grounds and or standing to get relief or get compensated for what happened. Right? So this light ceiling fixture thing that they're talking about down below in this document here, where did they get that from? Well, that's because I I give a story of something, a personal incident that I witnessed, where I was sitting at a table in the chow hall with my cellmate at the time, and we were eating, and a fluorescent light fell off the ceiling of the chow hall and smacked my cellmate smack dab in the head and cut him, got a gash in his head. And yeah, it didn't knock him out or anything, but it startled him. He was a strong dude, he was physically in shape, but he got a gash in his head. And it just so happened that the warden and others were there, and a whole bunch of people saw this act, right? And saw what happened. It fell from the ceiling and it hit him in the head. And he believed, and rightfully so, he believed that he had a case to file against the prison for not doing proper maintenance and taking proper care of the facility. And so, because they didn't do that, a light fell off and hit him in his head, and that he should be compensated for that, not just medically taken care of, but should be compensated for that happening to him, right? And he is right. He has grounds and or standing because it fell off the ceiling and hit him in his head. Now, I was sitting right next to him. The light fell and hit him in the head, but it didn't touch me. And I witnessed this horrible incident. I was shocked, stunned out of oh my gosh, just jumped, oh, right? And the light, but it didn't hit me. It didn't touch me. And I suffered no harm from the incident. And so, because I witnessed the incident, that's all I was for the benefit of my cellmate, is a witness to the incident. Um, and that's it, right? I have no grounds or standing to make a claim for redress or for compensation like he does because it did not hit me. It did not affect me physically, emotionally, or mentally. Now, I could say, oh, well, seeing that sight was horrible and it mentally affected me, and I have to make that claim and I have to prove it and all of that. If I was to try that, yes, then I would have grounds of standing, but no, it would not have held up. You have to be seriously traumatized and you have to prove it, right? But other than that, physically, I was not hurt. It did not hit me. The light did not touch me. I was not, you know, medically or mentally, I should say, harmed by this situation. So therefore, I had no grounds or standings to make any claim to file for relief in that situation. What I could do, what I do have grounds or standing to do, is file a request to staff that they go and fix all the lights. So none of the others fall on my head when I go into the chow hall. Now I could do that, right? But as far as that incident where this guy probably, if he had done his administrative remedies, exhausted them properly, and took it to court, would have been compensated, I would not have been able to do that. All I could do is to say, hey, Warden, you need to take care of these lights and don't let any of them fall on my head. I could put out a request and I could exhaust that, and that would be the end of that. All right. So grounds on standing. I hope you guys get that. It's very, very important things. And I say that you need to know when an individual writes to you or contacts you and says, hey, I need this done. I need to do a remedy on this because I want money. I want to go to the courts. I'm trying to do a lawsuit. I need you to help me with this tort claim. When you get tort claims, they're usually looking for monetary compensation. And when you read the information provided, a lot of times folks will be talking about stuff that they witnessed happen to somebody else and felt like it was horrible that it's happening to folks who are incarcerated, and so therefore because they are incarcerated they're entitled to monetary compensation also as the individuals who it actually happened to. And you have to be able to identify that and be able to say, well, I see here you want a remedy for this, claiming funds for this, but what evidence do you have that shows that you have grounds of standing, that shows that this actually affected you in some form or fashion? And the person, when you ask them the question like that, then they turn around and tell you none. Then you would then turn around and say to them, well, I could help you do this remedy. You have a right to file a remedy for this stuff. But the truth is, you don't have grounds or standing to get anything. And that's probably the response you're going to get from the prison and or the courts. So if you still want me to do this, waste my time and do this for you, I can, because you have a right to file. But the truth is, you don't have grounds of standing, so you're most likely not going to get anything. Rational folks, usually when you give that explanation, they get it and they say, okay, you know what, next time, not this one, right? And or if not, they'll go find you the information that you need. They'll provide you, hey, okay, so when this happened, the light hit that dude in his head, and then some of the glass shattered and passed and cut me, and then I got infected or something like that. So the light didn't hit me in my head, but the glass cut me and I got infected. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Now you're providing information that's giving you grounds or standing, right? So I hope that helps you guys understand grounds of standing. It is very important when looking at whether you could help folks with administrative remedies or not. And I hope you understand substantive and procedural law. It is also very, very important when doing remedies. A lot of incarcerated folks do not know this stuff, much less or understand it, much less even to do proper remedies. Some of them learn about a remedy and they just do stuff. They just want to file stuff thinking that they have grounds of standing or and want to file stuff using the laws, the rules, the regulations, but they don't know them, right? And because they don't know them, they get denied, rightfully denied, and they lose really good claims or really good filings because they're not following the proper procedures. They don't know them, and they don't know whether they have proper grounds of standing. And so that's a major hindrance in the system. And so by making sure that you don't have the shortcomings when assisting them is important. And so there you have it. I'm going to cut this one short. This was David Simpson, the criminal justice realm, giving you an understanding in key legal concepts. See you again soon.